thing which I have embarked on, the wave energy, is a difficult task, and I have reached out to various high-profile people, I would say, but most of them have mentioned, only said one thing: it's not a feasible option.
Mm-hmm.
Let's drop it and go for another thing. But if you think it's a doable thing, and if you have the support of your family, that's the major motivation for you.
Our guest for today is Sai Karthik. Thank you so much, Karthik, for joining us today. And congratulations for getting Australian Alumni Grant Scheme 2022.
Yeah, thank you very much, Pranati, for having me on the call, and yeah, thanks for the wishes.
It's our pleasure, Karthik. And Karthik is CEO of Virya Paramita Energy Private Limited. So, Karthik, can you give us a brief about your journey from NIT Srinagar to starting company?
Yeah. I have graduated from NIT Srinagar in 2016 from Civil Engineering Department. I worked for a year under Professor R.V. Ramarao as a senior research associate in environmental wing, and later on I have gone abroad for my MS in project management. So after finishing my MS, I've come back to India and I was searching for what are the various sectors which we could tap into in a renewable field, whereas the solar and other were already well exploited or well explored, I would say.
Hmm.
So that's when I was doing my second research and came across wave energy or the ocean energy, which we could say, and with much more going through the research papers and other journals available in our nation and elsewhere. So I have zeroed in on that. Okay, this is an untapped sector where there's a lot of scope for our nation and even as an industry purpose, because at the end of the day we have to think as an entrepreneur mindset. So yeah, it has a huge potential,
Hmm.
and a lot of hurdles are also there in the way because it's the newbie in the field. So, and I just contacted professors at IIT Madras in this regard. There was a one-on-one discussions like how much is that feasible for, how can we go for, is a research, if you how much cost effective would it be, or like to stay on both the sides. We have to make a common note, so we have to come on with common stand where we could, okay, we I am also able to justify my interest in this, and professors are also keen to trust on my things, on my instincts and stuff. So by 2020 end, we came on board, both IIT Madras and VP. That's when I started my company Virya Paramita Energy in November 2020, and the journey began from then, and it's going on. That's how
Hmm.
everything has started.
Oh, great, great. So, can you give us more idea about what is Virya Paramita Private Limited about?
So it's a VP Virya Paramita is like one of the Buddhist principle, which means is perfection of energy.
Mm-hmm.
So we as a startup are trying to harness ocean waves into an electricity from the ocean waves, basically, with the relative motion of this power and the buoy, our apparatus, basically, which we are deploying it in the ocean and trying to generate electricity from the relative motion of those components. So the magnitude of electricity depends on our requirement and the sizes. That's what we would be wearing in the in the power production. So that's it. And VP is not only entering into the power sector, but there are other applications also which we are going to tap into in the coming years, such as the sea surveillance aspect, then navigational buoys and deep sea communications, because the backbone of all these are the wave energy, basically the power supplying. And we are working on that particular component at this point of time, and we are trying to integrate various other sources such as sea surveillance, like keeping a buoy in the deep sea where it's a black spot for our ocean, like coast guards or even defense forces. We could place one of the buoy over there, and similar to a CCTV in our homes. So it would act as a surveillance system and would keep a continuous observation and send real-time data to the show. That's one application. Navigation buoys, like and deep sea communications, because we don't have network coverages in the deep sea. So we are, those are in still in idea stage, which we haven't chalked in yet. So yeah.
Understood, understood. So, how much power currently are you generating through this, or is it still in the research phase?
So it's still in a research phase. Like we have it's a prototype, a small prototype which we have tested of a 20-watt generator recently. But The scope is much bigger, which we haven't tried yet because with the limited quantum of funds which we got from AAGS, Australian Grant, and DST Nidhi Praya scheme, so we have used and bought in certain apparatus or equipments which are to be fitted in. Based on that, we got smaller output, but now we are trying for bigger output, and the designs are there, simulations and there. So we
Mm-hmm.
are going for a much bigger one on the coming days.
Oh, okay. So can you give us an idea about what is the process, how energy will be generated from the ocean waves, in layman words or simple words?
Yes, like if it's okay, then I could just share a small clipping of my
Yeah.
system where it would be useful for you. Okay, one
Yeah,
sec.
yeah, sure, definitely.
So this is what the system is, and so this is deployed in the coast of Tuticorin, and
Mm-hmm.
it's just a relative motion. The wave comes and hits the buoy, and the power takeoff mechanism is a rack and pinion which we use for the prototype. So it moves up and down, and the with the relative motion, the energy is mechanical energy is connected to electrical.
Mm-hmm.
So
Oh,
that's how it is.
so basically the mechanical energy, using this device, it will be converted to the electrical energy.
And over here, like whatever energy we have been generating, it's
Mm.
being just used to power the small LED bulbs which we placed on top, just to check out whether it's
Uh,
working or not. The white cap at the topmost.
yeah, yeah, they're like blinking, they're lightning.
So that's
Yeah.
what it is. And this system has been deployed from 6 kilometers from the Tuticorin coast, and it's at a depth of 25 meters. So if any,
Oh, nice, nice. So, how this system works? Does it require any power or anything, or?
it's self-sustaining. Like it's from the ocean waves. The input raw source is the ocean wave.
Oh,
So
okay. Mm.
it's basically the ocean wave comes and hits the buoy, and the motion comes, the relative motion comes and goes, and it would be connecting. So here the wave is bit
Understood.
higher, so it's going in the faster rate. When the wave is slow, it would be less.
Mm. Understood, understood.
So that's it.
So how are you doing the fundraising for this?
So fundraising, that's the difficult question, which we would say, but uh, basically we are reaching out to various grant or grant funding agencies on the government side and the private side,
Mm.
and most of the funds which we are seeking are in the form of grants itself, rather than an equity based one. We are trying for grants because
Mm-hmm.
it's still an R&D stage, and there's a huge quantum of funds which we require in the coming days. So in the present moment, we have applied for various grants from DST, MNRE, and Ministry of Earth Sciences, and few other private grants. Even we are trying for CSR grants also, where we could get from private MNC players who are trying to support eco-friendly ways or clean tech projects. So these are the various ways which we are trying in, and there is a scope for private equity based funding, I would say, but in India at the moment, the private equity based, clean tech based, and for R&D majorly is still in a nascent stage. It's still in the starting stages. So much scope is there in the abroad area, but over here it's still very in the early stages.
Oh, all the best for that. It's a actually very great idea. So I think you'll get all the funds required.
Yeah.
So can you talk about what are the major hurdles or challenges you faced while starting this company?
Sure. Like being like I mentioned, this is first of its kind startup like in wave energy thing, as in the private sector.
Mm.
Earlier, NIOT, National Institute of Ocean Technology, and IIT Madras have tested a system in 1990s. That's the
Oh.
which was a government funded project basically. So being a government funded, they were it was easy, but after that there was not much of a development due to the lack of support from our other governments back then. But uh, in being wave energy was just recognized as an renewable energy in 2019 by our government, Indian government. So being a newbie in the field where veterans like solar energy and all these are dominated the field with had a lesser price range of
Mm.
power purchase agreements and all these, we entering into the system and convincing the big shots in the government, the cabinet secretaries or the ministers or the else other persons in other dignitaries, is a bit difficult task. Okay, because they would be comparing us with the solar, which is already 20 years elder to us.
Yeah.
So convincing them is a difficult task. Second thing is the policies. So there is no defined set of policies on the technology which I'm working at,
Mm-hmm.
and we are yet to form certain policies which the government has to give to us, where we could use it for our own benefits or the coming ones in the on other startups who want to venture into the ocean energy or tidal or wave energy respectively. So there are no certain set of policies, and due to those, the governments, the private sector people would also would say reluctant to come forward support our sort of things, startups in terms of financing or and hand holding and things. So these are the certain things, and many would say that okay, this is not feasible. That those are the basic answers which you get from everyone,
Mm-hmm.
either elders, peers, or family friends. They would say, "Why are you going into this when solar I'm getting at 2 rupees a unit?" Or because in my case, I can't say even what price my unit would be because it's still in R&D phase. There's a
Yeah,
scope.
yeah.
We just know an answer that okay, there's a certain X amount of energy which is available in our seas, which we could tap
Hmm.
into, but at what cost is not a defined answer which I have at the moment. So people are, not only people, even the government is also looking into definitive answer due to the present economic situation of our nation and
Hmm.
all these things. But still we hope there's a lot of scope because due to the present geographical scenarios like Ukraine Russia war and dependence on oil, where Europe
Yeah.
has completely got suppressed due to this war and things, and current power crisis is going on a lot. So they have been investing a lot in this wave energy sector
Mm-hmm.
from not only now but from past 10 years or so. They have been investing in a phased manner on a huge scale, even though there's a huge amount of 200 million euros, I guess. But so for wave energy based startups and things, Europe and US, these are the nations which have been developing in terms of wave energy fields and stuff title. So convincing our governments, our local bodies, even our state governments, I would say, is a difficult task. Even trying to reach out to them, getting an appointment, okay, taking it further into the next phases was a difficult task for us. Even if it's still now, but we are
Hmm.
still hoping we could get into more. Whereas MNRE and others, we have reached out to them. They were quite positive in this regard, and they said they will extend their support. But let's hope for the best in the coming days. The government works in its ways, its own way. So yeah.
Yeah. So I think people will look at into this because now everyone are into renewable things. Like
Yeah.
the ways currently we are generating electricity is through coal and hydraulic water and everything. But it's not renewable. So apart from solar, nuclear, I think this also will come into limelight soon.
True. I expecting the same. Yeah.
Yeah. How do you think this is advantageous than solar electricity? Or
See, yeah, there are certain advantages. I would say. I mean, at the present research stage, solar is on the other plus point, plus on the positive side. But with respect to in the coming years, there is a lot of land requirement. Land is an scarce resource which would be coming in the future. So solar requires land, and
yeah.
then the others would say yes, we can install it on the rooftops and elsewhere,
Hmm.
but the amount of energy which we could tap into is also limited. It's for 6 to 8 hours duration which we could tap into for the solar,
Mm-hmm.
whereas the wave, it's a continuous energy which we could utilize from the ocean waves, and there's no other input material similar to solar which we wouldn't cost, like coal. You have to buy in the coal, then use it and produce the electricity.
Yeah.
So, and apart from that, the energy capacity, the production, what do you say, the quantum of energy which we could produce is also much higher, and the frequency of these waves are going to increase because the sea levels are rising, and there's a huge scope which we could tap into. And else, other in the other direction, if you see, not only electricity, we could break up the waves. Like if you see on the coast of Kakinada, the Uppada coast and
Hmm.
elsewhere, there has been a beach erosion from past 20 to 25 years. So the
Hmm.
sea has come into the shore, onto the shore, and it has gone into 1 or 1.5 kilometer in towards the end, and a lot of land has been acquired means got into the sea. So what we could do is we could break down the intensity of waves coming onto the shore, and
Hmm.
which would finally help us in okay protecting our own shorelines and stuff. So there are multiple uses, not only in terms of electricity. We could use it for other purposes, such as protecting our own shorelines from the intensity of waves and other things. So, and major other smaller applications which I mentioned, such as sea surveillance and other aspects. So these
Yeah.
are the other plus points or the branching out of the advantages, which I would say. And
Mm-hmm.
it's all are independent, like the amount of electricity which we require, we would be installing it, and the maintenance at the present moment as per a basic understanding and studies. So it's a minimal thing compared to other sources and stuff, whereas solar or other things. Yeah.
Yeah, got it, got it. And also, like, solar depends on the sunlight.
Yes.
Waves, it will be like in day and night also we can generate the electricity through it. Got it. A few things about your learnings from your failures.
So yes, so one first and major learning is that not whenever you are starting a startup, it's not a one man game. So you should always have a team. So
Yeah.
if you want to be a solo guy and if you want to keep your name everywhere, then you are completely duped. So
Hmm.
it should be a team game. Either it's a full time team or a half part time team. There should be members whom you could allocate work and branch out your basic things. Then only you would be able to think much more about your startup. So, and in terms of marketing your startup, no one is better than the founder who has started it, because he is the one who has the basic knowledge and crux of it. So he
Yes.
should dedicate himself more into the connecting and the PR things and other things, where he could tap into the market and get the basic order output which he wants in. That's the major thing. Like, I started with my alone, basically, like with my father and me
Mm-hmm.
and my only ones. He used to guide me basic things, but the groundwork, all I had to do was on my own, reaching out to the faculty, reaching out to ministries, reaching out to government officials. So it's a one man game which I had played in the start, but later on I had branched out my team. I've expanded my team, and that's when I could give each and every one of their responsibilities. I could offload myself from certain things. The burden was huge if you go as a single one, but branching out is the first major thing which the learning I learned in. Second thing is never be dependent on one particular option. Try keep a plan A or B and C so in place, so that if plan A fails, then you could go for plan B and plan C. So alternatives have to be sought out, and there are various ideas which you might think would work in the real world, but I would say to the fellows entrepreneurs, like, first check out whether what are the if your solution is really fitting into the market. So
Mm-hmm.
there are lots of research and what do you say outputs which have been derived by various faculty or students, I would say. And when they come into the commercial sector, it's not really viable in terms of economics, or it might not be addressing the exact pain point, or it might not have a bigger market. So try to find the market is the basic thing which we have to find out when we are entering into the market, because these are the learnings which I've learned through a few of the boot camps from GDC. It's Gopal Krishna Deshpande Center for Entrepreneurship. It's one of the IIT Madras part. So uh, they had given a good what do you say lessons. They have taught us a good lessons on how to search out the markets and customers, basically find out their pain points. Are we really reaching out to them or not? So these are the basic learnings which I got back then. Yeah.
Oh, so your father is also into this company. Looks like your family is so supportive about this, right?
Yes, that's the major plus point for me at the moment, because my father has been supporting a lot from the start itself, whether
Mm-hmm.
it's a positive one or negative, whatever we get, the answers which we get from the society or from the output from this project. He was pretty supportive, not only in terms of advice, but in terms of financially also, because it's a huge R&D consuming, finance
Yes,
consuming project.
yes.
So he has been supporting me even both financially and advice based also.
Oh, that's so great about your father, like to support this new idea and help you
Then-
with everything. So, what are the first things someone should know before starting a startup, and how are you managing land, labor, and capital?
So at the moment, like the grants which I got, I'm using it to fund my sources, whatever the manpower or the fabrication works and other things. So, well,
Mm-hmm.
apart from that, even my personal funds are being utilized in this, because the quantum we got is far lesser, or the quantum which we require. So it's a 50-50 basis which is going on at the moment. So And with terms of other things like manpower and things, they are mostly located at the research base itself in Chennai, nearby IIT Madras itself. So most of the research is being done at IIT Madras labs. We have signed a JD, joint development agreement, with IIT Madras. So everything, most of the labs are being tests are being conducted at IIT Madras itself. So there is no infrastructure cost for me at the moment. I have to source the funds for the institute where we could continue with our research and other stuff. And manpower is also there from both sides. Faculty from IIT Madras, Professor Samad, Professor Abdul Samad, and Professor Abdi are pretty supportive in this regard. So they have been assisting me in taking on this journey ahead. So that's major process into the research itself rather than
Mm.
infrastructure. That's what I had roped in with, because me setting up an infrastructure on myself at this stage is pretty difficult because the funds or the land requirement is pretty huge. So
Yeah.
I thought, okay, let's not venture into that. Let's utilize the resources which already the nation has in the form of Taiwan institutes of a nation. So that's what I'm doing.
That's a very great idea, I should say. So it looks like you are so passionate about your goal and you're learning from your failures and implementing it. So how can someone stick to their goal or form consistent conviction towards their goal?
See, one thing is that when you believe your own thing, the work which you're working on, and because the thing which I've embarked on, the wave energy, is a difficult task, and I have reached out to various high-profile people, I would say, but most of them have mentioned, only said one thing: it's not a feasible option.
Mm-hmm.
Let's drop it and go for another thing. But if you think it's a doable thing, and if you have the support of your family, that's the major motivation for you, then anything you can go ahead. Because when you don't have any what do you say, mental trauma or physical stress on you in terms of these
Yeah.
things,
Yeah.
then you would be able to take it ahead with ease. And I would say when the the other end, the trust basis, when you form a trust with the research team also, and both
Yes.
go hand in hand.
Hmm.
So it's a pretty easy task, I would say. That's the thing.
Got it, got it. So looks like you are a very busy person. You are doing PhD as well, right? So how are you managing the company work, research work, and the PhD? How
So
are you balancing work and life?
it's basically a learnings which means I started my PhD in 2021 in July or so.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a learning phase which I've learned in my entrepreneurship journey. I thought, okay, I'm doing my research and management, all these things. Why not I go for my PhD also? And
Mm.
I'm working on my thesis similar to the entrepreneurship work which I'm working in. So it's more of a knowledge which I field experience which I'm gaining in. I'm utilizing it for my academic degree. So it's hand in hand. It's like, but most of the time it's a pretty occupied thing. Either I have to be in my research field or I have to be in this
Mm.
startup field, because I
Yeah.
have to meet various people and stuff. So it goes hand in hand, just managing time, because other things I manage my parents or my family. With
Mm.
respect to my own startup, like I said, I found my own team, so I have bifurcated my works and stuff. So I have given each of them their own responsibilities. That's where I'm able to take out some time for my PhD. And
Mm.
it's on a part-time mode, but yes, it's going on at the moment.
Oh, that's so nice. Like doing parallelly the PhD, which you can use it with the learnings, which you can put it in the company.
True, yeah.
Yeah, that's so nice. So, what are you looking for about this company, and what are the company future plans? How are you planning to expand this?
So we are thinking to phase it out in three different phases. Like one is for the applications phase, such as the sea surveillance one, which mentioning about. So we have got another grant. It's a Carbon Zero Challenge 2022 from IIT Madras, and we are working
Mm-hmm.
on sea surveillance problem for that. So
Mm-hmm.
we are thinking if we would be able to. We are working on it. So if we are able to produce the system out, then our first product would be a sea surveillance equipment. And
Mm-hmm.
in the coming 1.5 year, we are trying to bring that particular equipment out. And in the next 3 years, we would say we would be able to say that commercial bioenergy generators for the power production would be coming in. Then the other applications, navigational, deep sea communication, that in that phased manner we are trying to work in. So first one is the defense, because geopolitical things have been going on in the naval side, with the China growing influence in the Sri Lanka and the Indian Ocean sector.
Yeah.
We are trying to tap into that particular area, which we would. It's a beneficial thing both for us and even for the defense of our nation, and protecting certain black spots or keeping an eye on others when the intrusions or illegal activities on shore, on coast. So these are the
True.
areas where we are trying to tap in the initial phase.
Hmm. Looks like you have many plans in
Yeah.
line. All the very best. All it happens as you planned.
Thank you.
So,
Thank you.
do you have any suggestions for the young entrepreneurs?
So, first and foremost is have a solid idea and just
Mm.
check out what's the feasibility of it, in terms of like whether you could there's a required demand in it or not. If it's you're going into newbie, then how could you phase it out? Are there any options which you could tap into? Is there any support or not? Or in my case, like if you could reach out to the academic institutions where you could
Mm.
utilize their infrastructure for the idea which you have, that would be also beneficial for the new entrepreneurs, because there's a lot of resources which are available in our academic institutions, labs and everything. If we could tie up with those institutions, and you could take forward your research and idea in an
Mm.
entrepreneurial way. So that's the major thing I would say, because you yourself keeping a lot of amount into the infrastructure is not so viable, whereas you
Okay.
could utilize these things and try to get funds for those activities at those institutions.
Mm.
That's a win-win situation both for us and even the academic institutions where the bright minds are there of a nation. So yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And also, it's so great that you are contributing to the India's aim of generating 500 gigawatts power by 2023 by using renewable energy.
Yeah. So it's we are happy to be part of it. Once our technology is ready, we would be like obliged. I mean, getting the chance to support India in fulfilling its COP27 Paris Agreement goals. So
Yes.
it's a real opportunity for us to fulfill our nation's goals in the real world.
So Karthik, it's so nice talking with you. I have a rapid fire for you. So
Okay.
I'll tell few words. You have to tell me the first thing that comes to your mind after listening to the word.
Okay. Good.
So India,
A powerful nation.
failure,
Uh, uh, Key lessons.
dreams,
The milestones.
purpose,
The vision, I would say.
money.
Next phase, the pathway for the next phase.
Yeah, that's so good. Thank you so much, Karthik, for joining us today
Thank you
and
for
enlightening us with new technology.
yeah. Thank you for having me on the talk.